Hello, everybody. Hope you're well. Thanks for joining. It's good to be here. And please God, we could have a nice shir together. I want to dedicate the shir for those who are not feeling well. Unfortunately, we have a few people in our community not feeling well with COVID or other illnesses. And to the neshama of Mike Bohr, Meir and Shraga Feivel, who we buried just a few hours ago, stalwart of Linksfield, and one of the best men I know. It's a privilege to know him. So yesterday I reached out late at night, not too late at night, I reached out and I said, who wants to learn Torah in a year? And honestly, it was a moment of inspiration. There's a new cycle starting, and I thought, why not try to see if 10 people will join on board? And by now we have over 120 people who've signed up, many people from the community and from outside the community. On Facebook, I've got many people who I don't even know who follow me and asked me to join. And it got me thinking. It got me thinking how important knowledge is. Because ultimately, there's a statement that says ignorance is bliss. And pretty much that means if you don't know, then you don't suffer. You don't know the consequences. There's a lot of translations actually of the word. The simple meaning is, if you don't know, then there's nothing wrong with you doing anything you want. But another meaning of ignorance is bliss is somebody walks into a situation and they're not intuitive to what's going on, the emotions, etc. And they walk in and sit there saying, they have a great time. They don't know it's awkward. They don't know it's painful. They're totally ignorant. But the question is, how blissful is ignorance? How blissful is it to actually not know anything? Because what I've come to realize more and more in life is that, yes, knowledge is pain. The more you know, the more pain you have. Think about it like this. A young child has an injection. They feel the pain, but they don't really feel the trauma of it. An adult, you'll get much more scared and you'll take it much more seriously. Like, for example, a 4-year-old who had surgeries, it's heartbreaking, but 10 years down the line, they don't remember it. A 14-year-old who has surgeries, it's very much affecting them, and a 50-year-old, etc. My point is that the more you know about what you're going through, the more painful it is. The less you know what you're going through, if you have somebody unfortunately is losing their mind, or if somebody is not fully present, obviously that's painful in itself, but the ignorance of what's going around is somewhat blissful. So that statement, ignorance is bliss, I agree with. But ignorance is not worth it, even if it's blissful. Knowing about our heritage, knowing about where we come from, knowing about the suffering that's going on, living with knowledge is one of the most important things a human being can endeavor. And for me, the biggest proof for that was just asking people, do you want to study the 613 mitzvahs 2 minutes a day for the next year? And 120 people said yes in less than 24 hours. And for me, that was a statement that people want knowledge. They want it in bite size. They don't want to be overwhelmed with it. But as long as it's straightforward, easy to understand, people want knowledge, because knowledge is power. Knowledge is extremely powerful. And we've spoken about this before, but I think it's worth reiterating that one of the biggest complaints I have against the education system, and when I talk about education system, I'm not talking about one specific school or one specific country. It's a fundamental problem I have with the education system. And no, it's not that it's not moving into modern times. Yeah, there's the big complaints people have. It should be more tailor-made to people's talents and etc. No. By me, I have one fundamental issue with education system. What it tells people is that education is a way to be successful in life. In other words, education is a means to an end. Once you find that end, once you have your degree, once you're a doctor, a lawyer, or an accountant, a physicist, an engineer, you have made it. And now go have a good life because you could support your family in comfort and watch Netflix every night. In other words, we're only going to get you to use your brain as long as we need you to develop skills to make money so that you could afford Netflix on a fancy couch. But the second you can sit there living in a nice house on the beach, and you could drink quality wine and, marry a nice person and just live the life, then who needs knowledge? And for me, that's a problem, because what are you telling your kid? Get him a trick, your grandchild, whatever, get him a trick so that you can be well in life. In other words, knowledge is a way to make a living. So knowledge will make sure that you could drink quality coffee in your fancy house. But it's totally the opposite of what really is. Coffee and sitting down in your house is an opportunity for you to now gain knowledge. Having a good financial backing is a good opportunity to not be so stressed about finances so that you can acquire knowledge. But the point is, my ultimate goal is acquiring knowledge. That's the hierarchy. And I'm not even talking about specifically Jewish knowledge at this point. I'm not talking about Torah. I'm talking about the mere fact of a person exercising their intelligence and allowing themselves to stimulate their mind. That should be the goal of human beings. And this is not a Jewish idea. Whether it was Aristotle or Plato, the ancient Greek philosophers, they've also taught, they very much the power of thought. Now, obviously, Judaism has a holier perspective on it, but we agree with the basic principle. A human being should be elevated above all pleasures. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with pleasures, but life is not about the pursuit of pleasures. It's just a nice comfort. It's a nice thing to make your journey a little more pleasant. But ultimately, the journey of life is acquiring knowledge. The journey of life is learning from this world and learning wisdom, acquiring wisdom, walking around with our hands open to acquire wisdom. Because ultimately, you are, as a person, as healthy as your ideas. If you have healthy ideas in your head, if you have healthy perspectives in your head, then your life is healthy. You see the world healthy. You see marriage healthy. You see children healthy. You see friendships healthy. You see COVID with a healthy perspective because you've educated yourself. You've nurtured your brain to think in a certain way. But if I don't nurture my brain to think in a certain way, or I allow bad ideas, as I referred to it, I think yesterday's share, a different share, unkosher ideas. And when I mean kosher, literally unhealthy for your peace of mind, for your sanity, when you allow those ideas to take over, then they become all too powerful. So the question I ask you today is, how much of a pedestal are books and knowledge in our home? Often I'll tell people, it's good to read books. And they'll tell me, yeah, of course I read books. I read fiction. Now, there's nothing wrong with fiction, although I think a lot of the fiction that comes out today is not nearly the same quality of fiction that was 100 years ago, 150 years ago. But fine, read fiction. But unless it's real quality fiction that's stimulating your mind, it's pretty much often as mindless as watching a Netflix series. Whatever, it just takes your mind, it's distracting. But that's not knowledge. That's just distracting. It's another form of distraction. And that's great. But ultimately, the goal is to be more, to sit down when you have a bit of time and pick up scholarship. Pick up scholarship. Real, the amount of scholarship there's out there is unreal. Personally, as a rabbi, I would tell you that the most quality scholarship I would recommend is Torah. And let me be very frank, what Torah means and what Torah doesn't mean. I had a very interesting Facebook conversation yesterday with a friend of mine, Rabbi Stern. We meet every Monday on Facebook, 12:30 for half an hour, and we chat about whatever's on our mind. And yesterday was about knowledge and information. And there's a big variety of what Torah is considered. Some people will think that Torah is just the Talmud. Some people will think that Torah is just mysticism. Some people will think that Torah is just laws. Some people will think that Torah is just stories. And the truth is, it's all. Any topic you enjoy outside of Torah, I can find you a topic within Torah. So for example, if you like history, I'll find you Jewish history that's going to blow your mind. You like analytical study, I'll give you analytical study. You want practical, I'll give you practical. You want spiritual and mystical, I'll give you spiritual and mystical. Torah has it all. Torah is not one box. It's like on my table right now, this is a book of Maimonides, this is a book of laws, and this is a Tanya, it's a book of spirituality. Behind me, I have a Talmud, And each day I try to dabble a bit into each of the books. They stimulate different parts of my brain. And they transform me. I don't know how to say this. I'll be honest. And I'm talking as somebody who for many years was not studious. Let me explain what I mean. You know, I did well in school. I got good marks, but I didn't have a passion for study. If you saw me at 18 years old and you would look at me, you would see like, what's this guy doing in yeshiva? Wasting his life. Go get a life for yourself. And the truth is, maybe I should have. I don't know. But I stuck it through, even though I didn't enjoy it at all. And then got married, got a job, became a teacher. And even then I taught information, but I didn't have an enjoyment of knowledge. And recently in the past few years, maybe my maturity or maybe my role, I don't think it was so much my role. I just think I achieved a certain maturity in my own life where suddenly I realized, I was like, gosh, knowledge is amazing. Even if it's irrelevant knowledge, that means I can't practicalize it. I'm studying a piece of Talmud and we're talking about an esoteric or an abstract idea about ancient Babylonia, how a person, you know, because these days I'm learning in the Talmud about in Babylonia, and you have a fire, and it's a certain kind of fire. Can you extinguish it on Shabbos? Now, whatever, I'm not talking, I don't really have these issues. Yes, there are fires, but the very different scenarios, filling up ancient containers with water so that the fire hits the container, breaks the container, the water spills in the fire and extinguishes it, is all cool and funny, but it's irrelevant to my life in a practical sense. And yet, I'm enjoying the scholarship. I'm enjoying watching, you know, because that's what the Talmud is. You're watching a conversation. It's a conversation between a bunch of rabbis. And by the way, they're quite harsh with each other. Sometimes the rabbis say the nastiest things about one another. I'll give you an example. I was preparing today the shir for my new thing of Maimonides. And Maimonides is referring to the fact that other people have written the 613 mitzvot before him. But he thinks that their counting and whatever mitzvahs they put in the 613 is irrelevant. But listen to what he says. He says, even the people who went against the main author, who's a guy named Alachas Gedolos, whatever, they just went a drop. It's as if their brains froze and did not allow themselves to rethink the whole strategy. And what I want to do is I want to rethink the whole strategy of what the 613 mitzvahs are. But he says it in Hebrew, Ki'ilu kaf'u hadayot, their brains froze. It's pretty nasty. But that's in the passion of the moment, that's the way they often spoke to each other. But to go into the head of scholarship, even if it's stuff that I can't necessarily tell you how practically it will play out in my life, but in that moment, I'm consumed with knowledge of a world that was, a knowledge of debates that were argued thousands of years ago, and I'm allowing myself to go into a different space. And that's learning. Learning it allows you to go into a different space, but not a mindless space. Movies also take you to a space. And opera also takes you to a space. And I have nothing against opera and I have nothing against movies, but they're usually mindless. In other words, they're relaxing. Real learning is not relaxing. That's a novel. Real learning is if by the time you're finished, a half an hour of it, your brain hurts. I often find on the day that I stuff my day a bit too much with too many shiurim, by the time it's 7 o'clock at night, I'm a total zombie. I'm literally like walking, and I hadn't been up that many hours, but just the amount of brain power you have to use to study, it literally tires you in a way more than body, more than exercise. But our brains are often not used enough. They're not pushed to the limit of our potential. We all talk about exercise and health and pushing our body to the limit. But how many of us, once we're finished school, challenge ourselves to stimulate and force our brains to the limit, to go to something really difficult and really get into it, dig into it, try to understand it, break your head into it over and over until you get it. And for me, I found, and different people are different, I understand that. For me, I found that the more I undertake, the more shiurim I undertake, the more commitments daily I undertake of learning, the more structure that makes me. In other words, now that I committed now to prepare a 2-minute speech every day, and it takes more than 2 minutes to prepare for it, so that fills my day with more learning. I do various shiurim, both for the shul and outside the shul, different areas of interest on my studies, and you could all see that I post all of it on Facebook. but it's like a big variety of different topics. And it forces me to get into the headspace of learning. And if you told me this 10 years ago that I would enjoy learning, I would tell you not a chance. I'm an emotional guy. I enjoy the intuitive stuff. I enjoy psychology, maybe the study of it, but even more than I enjoy the practical of it. You're going to tell me I'm going to sit down and actually want to give a shear on information? No. But one day I woke up and I realized the only way you could really grow as a human being from day to day is to grow your perspective, to grow your database, to grow your knowledge. And if every day you become a little more clever because you know more about whatever, about the world, about your heritage, about yourself, then you've grown, you've moved ahead in life. But if today I see the world with the exact same eyes that I saw yesterday, then today was very much a waste of a day, at least intellectually. Maybe I was kind to people and I made people's life great, and that itself has value. But I haven't truly grown. The beauty of knowledge is the moment I put new knowledge into my brain, or you put new knowledge into your brain, you're a new person because now you have a new factor. It's almost like a mathematical equation. So you have a lot of factors that go into this mathematical equation. The second you throw in one extra factor, the whole mathematical equation changes. One more plus or one more division changes the whole dynamic. So too with knowledge. One extra piece of knowledge in your brain that you listen to, that you digest, that you read, that you learn, whichever way you consume knowledge, that now has changed you. You're a totally different algorithm because you have new content in your brain. And therefore you have a new ability of seeing the world differently. And none of us can claim that we see the world the right way because there's so many perspectives. So wouldn't we want to discover more perspectives and more perspectives and more perspectives? Now you might say, so then why are you only studying your heritage? Why don't you go study other people's perspectives? So first of all, I do. At least not the majority of the time, but I do. I like reading other people's perspective. But first and foremost, I would say, first get to know your own perspective, your heritage, and then get to know others. Unfortunately, I find a lot of Jews know more about Christianity than Judaism. So if I actually asked anybody who was JC's mother, almost every Jew in the world can tell me the name. Meir, right? Ask everybody, what was Moses' mother? Or father, for that matter. We don't know. At least many of us. Truth is, her name was Yocheved and his name was Amram. What was Avram's parents' name? Abraham. His father's name was Terach and his mother's name was Amatlai. Point is, that is information that if it's my heritage, if it's my story, even if I don't necessarily believe in the whole Judaism, but just the mere fact I am a Jew, I come from that family, I would want to know my heritage. Don't you want to know where you come from? Don't you want to know why millions of Jews throughout history were willing to spill blood for this heritage? Don't you want to know why so many people hate us? I'm not justifying their hatred, I'm saying why. Don't you want to know that? I always tell people, I say, listen, before you quit on Judaism, and you're entitled to, everyone has free choice. The authentic thing to do is first give Judaism a chance. Come to me after you're able to study a bit of text inside. You can open up a Talmud and make the head and toes, and then we could sit there saying it's relevant or irrelevant. But it's like me coming and telling you that, you know what, physics is all nonsense. And you'll sit there saying, Rabbi, you're not exactly qualified to talk in physics. You're a nice guy, you're decent. I see you have a half decent brain, but for you to come and sit there saying physics is irrelevant is pretty much disrespectful to a whole body of law, a body of work. And I'm losing respect for you, Rabbi. And yet, so many people will sit there saying Judaism is irrelevant. And then 1 second, hey, why is that any more justified than saying physics is irrelevant? Or, the whole medical community, they don't know what they're doing. I'm going alternative. Everybody doesn't know what they're doing with COVID. It's a total meshuggah. Come to me. I'm the new guru in town. I've come with a new concoction, salt and water and a bit of vinegar, and now your COVID is solved. You'll be like, hey, Rabbi, you're out of your mind. And yet so often we come and sit there, about our own heritage and sit there saying, doesn't talk to me. What doesn't talk to you? A rabbi's sermon on Rosh Hashanah doesn't talk to me either. Coming to 4 hours and sitting in Shul on Yom Kippur, starving, wearing white and sneakers, it doesn't talk to me either. But that's not Judaism. That's a very small sliver. It's like me coming and saying, I tried to read 2 lines from Einstein's theory of relativity, And the whole EMC square stuff, it's like, it's just beyond me. Like, dude, you're like, 1 second, Rabbi, seriously. Like, Einstein wasn't an idiot. And by the way, he was Jewish. And he figured a lot out. And first really studied the theory of relativity before you reject it. Nah, who theory of relativity? What did he know? Why are we so quick to reject something that we don't know? That's really my challenge. My challenge that I wish I could call out to every Jew around the world. No one's telling you what to do. I'm not telling you to become firm or do mitzvahs or believe anything. All I'm saying is give your heritage a chance. Let it present its case thoroughly. And not just from one person, because one rabbi might not resonate with you, one rebbitzin might, but there's so many different perspectives within Judaism. And get yourself at least some grounding in it, some education in it, and then be qualified to sit there saying, I don't believe. I remember one time someone was telling me, he had an interesting perspective. He said to be a real heretic, but he wasn't saying heretic in a negative sense, saying to be somebody that really opposes Judaism, you have to know Judaism. To be against Judaism, you have to know what you're against. But often, like, people in politics, they don't know what they're against, but they just know they're against. I'm a right winger, I have to be against Biden. I'm a left winger, I'm against Trump. I don't know why, I don't know who, but that's just the way it is. What are you against? What are you against? Or what are you for? What is that heritage? Learn. And for me, the gift of COVID has been, I've studied more Torah in the past 4 months than probably I've studied in years combined. And I'm not studying 18 hours a day, but I'm studying a few hours a day from a big gamut of interesting pieces of knowledge. All of it, by the way, which is translated into English. The Talmud's translated into English. The Tanya is translated into English. Maimonides is translated into English. The Rebbe's teachings are translated to English, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And just like absorbing. And that is one of the great gifts. It's one of the great gifts of our time, of COVID. And I'm not saying COVID doesn't come with its challenges. It is nasty. I mean, just today, I had to do a funeral. Mike's funeral would have had hundreds of people if not for COVID. And the Shiva house would be packed if not for COVID. We would have Kaddish for him if not for COVID. So COVID is not exactly a walk in the park. We all know that. At the same time, one of the gifts is your home. Get on to knowledge. Study more. Push your brain harder. Sit down and get lost in information. And if it's not Torah, if you're not in the mood of getting in Torah, fine, go into physics and try to walk out of the next experience with the theory of relativity. Try to walk out the next 2 months and be able to explain clearly. If you enjoy mathematics, go into a mathematical equation. Go and push yourself. Again, because knowledge is not a way to make a living. One of the benefits of knowledge is if you learn the right knowledge, if you don't study random arts or the ancient history of Mesopotamia, the chances are you could get a job. But that's just a side benefit of knowledge. That's like, okay, by the way, knowledge gives me, one of the benefits that I study Torah is I'm a rabbi. But if you're going to tell me that I'm studying Torah to be a rabbi, then like I'm turning Torah into just a way to make a living. For me, that's petty. So I make a living so I can live in the house. And in the house, I want to drink, my water and I want to have my quality food. So when I'm eating a nice kebab at night, all my knowledge was there to be able to afford the kebab sitting in my house by my table. Really? Is that the point of knowledge? Is that really all it is? That you can eat a kebab on your couch? That you could drink quality wine? That your husband or yourself can drink quality whiskey? That's what it is? Come on. Knowledge is the gift. We should not quit on knowledge when we're 18 or 22 after high school or after varsity or 26. Knowledge is something that every day we're alive, we should want to know more. Because it enriches our life. It gives us so much more richness. Often we think of poverty and wealth in terms of money. That's the first thing that comes to mind. But it's so not true and essentially in the deeper level. There are many people who are poor financially but rich in quality of life. And many people who are rich financially who are poor in quality of life. Because ultimate wealth and poverty is in your life experience. Your life is rich. It's full of wisdom and joy and perspective and love and companionship. Life is rich. Like one of the nicest things people can say after somebody passes away, and unfortunately I've been doing too many funerals for my liking, is often one of the first things they'll say about a person is they lived a good, rich life. Their life was full. And often, unfortunately, you also hear the opposite. You say, shame, like, they had a hard life and they never really had quality of life. What's quality of life? Quality of life is not only nachas from your kids. It's not only financial. No, quality of life is you're living with your whole heart. You're loving and you're generous and you're warm and you're knowledgeable and you're pushing yourself and you're just a person on a road growing every day. That is the gift of knowledge. That is the most incredible gift that each and every one of us has. And that is the ability to push ourselves more, to become greater, because ignorance is not bliss. And because knowing our heritage is not an obligation, it's an opportunity. Like often people will sit there saying, Rabbi, are you trying to tell me that if I don't come to shul, I'm not a good Jew? No. And I'm not going to tell you if you come to shul, you'll be a good Jew. No. But if that's who you are, don't you want to know more about it? You're stuck with the name Jew. You're stuck. One of the saddest things, sad, or maybe, I don't know if the right word's ironic, but I've mentioned it before, I've lost quite a bit by the family in the Holocaust. And the story goes, my mother's grandfather, my mother's mother's father, was a rabbi in a town in Ukraine. And what the Nazis did in Ukraine, they didn't send most of the people to concentration camps very often. They would just shoot them in pits where they were, also in Lithuania. The concentration camps were for Hungarians and Polish and a bit of Russia, Ukraine, but on the most part, the people in the East, in Ukraine and Russia, they were shot, taken out of their village and shot in a pit right next. And that's what happened to my great-grandparents, etc. And the whole town, it was a city called Krasnostav, which literally means, I think, Red River. And they took out 850 people, which was the whole community, and shot them in the pits, including my grandparents and my great uncle and his wife, and maybe my great aunt as well. Anyways, the story goes, there was one family who before the war, they converted to Christianity. And guess what? They were in the pit together with my grandfather, and together with the family. And for me, it's always been like the Nazis didn't look at someone and say, oh, you converted to Christianity? Oh, you're not Jewish anymore. No, they said, you're still Jewish. You're the Jewish race. You're going to cause us problems. They shot them together with it. And I think to myself, if the one thing those evil monsters got right is a Jew is a Jew is a Jew. It's who you are. You can't escape it. I don't think you want to, but even if you want to, you can't. It's part of our heritage. And in a time with a bit of raising anti-Semitism, and you start wondering, like, 1 second, what happened to my world? Why are people suddenly not liking me? What is it about the Jew? That's the time to sit there asking yourself that question. What are we? What makes us tick? What is our strength? And no, it's not that we have better brains than other people and that we have IQ and we have more accountants and professors. No, that's not. What is it? What is it about the Jew that just every 50 years another form of anti-Semitism comes? What is it about us that we just can't stay quiet and we make noise all around the world? What is it? Know it, explore it. Jewish history fascinates me. To understand where we come from. Who were these characters? Who was Maimonides? Who was his wife? Who were his kids? Who was Rashi? What were these kind of people? Why did they buy into this whole heritage? What were they after? Someone one time asked me, why do you believe in God? And there's many answers to that question, but one of the best answers, it's not my answer, I've heard it, but it really resonates, is my grandfather was much more clever than me. I know that because he really was a clever fellow and he believed in God. And so my grandmother, she was no idiot and she believed in God. So obviously, before I quit on God, let me give that knowledge a chance. That means like a lot of smart people before me bought into this. Now, yes, a lot of smart people bought into atheism as well, fair. But if I come from this home and I come from this heritage and I come from this background, don't I want to know more before I quit on it? Before I say goodbye? I'm married to it anyway, and I can't divorce my Judaism, even if I tried. It's who I am. If I forget it, the Antisemites will remind me. This is who we are. Get to know it. Get into the knowledge. Allow the knowledge to overwhelm you. Tonight, I look forward to have you join us. We're going to have a share on why do bad things happen. And let me qualify before. I'm not going to give an answer to that question. We're going to address the question, and we're going to try to explore perspectives. But no, I don't know how long my beard is or how many years I'll live on this planet. The answer why do bad things happen is not, there's no good answer to it. But we're going to explore. We're going to explore the question. We're going to explore it and hopefully offer some perspective on what it means to pain in this world. And again, based on Torah's sources, because Torah has insight. And I hope that together during this time, yourself or on this share, whenever you join us, we can just upgrade our knowledge a little more. Because a day of learning is a day of living, and ignorance is definitely not bliss. Shekayach.